Okay, I think we should get started.
Let's go,
Cool.
Rob.
So, all right. Welcome. This is one of many webinars that I've done with my coworker here, Leanna. She's our VP of Customer Success. My name is Rob Grazioli. I'm one of Density's co-founders, and I'm our head of product and design. Really excited to have you guys. Obviously, going to be talking about how Density is helping our customers navigate what is a unprecedented time. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we do, and then just how customers have been using our data and our platform to get back to work, get back to campus, get back to factory safely. Cool. So let's get going. What is Density? We build this little sensor that you see above these doorways here, and we string them together to create a network so we can cover large portfolios or small conference rooms, and then we deliver those analytics on our platform. Leanne, if you want to go to the next slide. More importantly, all that information that we deliver is completely anonymous. So every sensor above the door is sort of looking down into a scene, but the data that it gets back is totally anonymized. So it's really just looking at these blobs. And then on the device, we essentially compute whether or not that blob is a human. And if it's a human, we watch it go through a threshold, and it generates a plus and minus one into our system, which we combine to create count analytics. Next slide, Leanna. And then again, we expose this all in real time through alerts that you can set up in our platform, through analytics you can look at both in a mobile application and on the web, and more recently we've exposed displays that people can use to project to their patrons, employees, or students. So Leanne, you want to? Well, really quickly, before all this started, actually, we saw the change happening. So this was back, in early March when you started to hear the news of things overseas, and we have this unique insight into how people were actually reacting to that. So we did a breakdown by industry. The red is basically a reduction in occupancy across all these industries. So we were watching people leave buildings in real time, basically. And of course that made us a little bit nervous, but we sort of took our time. We listened to what people's needs were, and we felt like, one, people were definitely going to want to go back, but we wanted to help them go back in a way that was safe, but most importantly, without invading privacy, which is like a unique core tenet to Density. It's really easy to sacrifice that in a time as uncertain as this, but we have a hard stance against surveillance, and we felt like we could really help people do that. Fun fact from one of our customers, the sentiments that generally it's just going to be a long time, and you're seeing a lot of companies announce delays in getting back to the office. But also handshakes are dead, which is kind of a sad fact of our new normal. So Leanna, maybe you want to touch a little bit more on just the overall package that we've been offering to our customers for safety, and we'll get going.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, when we put together our set of functionality, thinking about how do we help customers reopen their businesses, their campuses, their workplaces in a safe way, we largely developed our technology in these three categories. First is display. So as you saw in the last slide, we realized that safety is a two-sided problem. There's actually keeping people safe and making sure that spaces are below what's been determined as a safe level of capacity. But there's also the perception of safety. Like as a employee, a student going into a space, how do I know, how can I trust that space is safe? And that's where we worked on technologies like display to enable our customers to help provide that extra level of safety and information to their customers, students, et cetera. Alerts is another suite of functionality that we've been working on. And this helps you know real time when potentially your spaces are reaching unsafe occupancy levels, or when spaces have had a certain amount of traffic and you might want to trigger cleaning to make sure that you're keeping those spaces extra sanitary. And then lastly, we have a suite called Analytics. And this helps you compare over time data across a space, but across spaces themselves. So you can see how you're performing against your space targets and where you're potentially going over capacity. So we're going to dive into each of these in a little bit more detail. So first is display. And Rob's going to walk through a live demo of this later today, but effectively this is a relatively simple tool. It takes our data, puts it into a really nice format via a long-lasting URL that you can then add to any browser-enabled display and put up on digital signage to help share the status of how busy your spaces are with people who either might be about to enter or thinking of going to those spaces. So we've seen that this functionality is really popular for restrooms, a place where you can't see into, but coming up on, you do want to know whether you're walking into a busy situation or not for your health and safety. Break rooms has also been common. Same reason, you might have a few break rooms. If you're a warehouse employee, you might have a few break rooms to choose from, and knowing in advance which ones are busy and which ones you'll be able to feel safe and keep a safe distance from your colleagues when you go into is really important. Dining halls. So our higher education customers have been actually, one, using this in digital signage in their dining halls, but also many of our customers partner with third parties to and have either like intranets or hospitality apps, and they'll actually either put this display fully in that, as an image in those applications, or even just a quick pass-through link so that students or employees can access it, so that in the place where they're already looking for information about maybe their meal plan, the menu for the cafe, things like that, they can actually go and access real-time busyness for these spaces to make those informed decisions about where they might have lunch and when they may have to go to lunch, things like that. And then lastly is places like lobbies have been really popular for this, especially with our customers that have hot desking or flexible seating arrangements across their floors. If you walk into a lobby and know how busy each of those floors are, those key spaces in the building, it can help you inform where can you sit for that day in a way that you don't have to necessarily go to each floor and see how busy it is and waste a lot of time. So to dive in a little bit into alerts, this is something else that our customers who are opening their business have been using heavily. And so one is the ability to alert when you do either hit almost at capacity or go over capacity, so you can potentially send staff to help, in the case that you don't have a safe display, or maybe people are still like going into a space anyway, you can send staff to help intervene and make sure you're able to get that occupancy back down to a safe level where where everyone can social distance appropriately. And then also, another place that our customers are using this, both alerts and then just analytics, is thinking about their cleaning schedules. So one, looking for periods when spaces are especially busy to make sure you're cleaning afterward, and so that you're actually cleaning, that you're actually cleaning spaces that are used, because in this time we know that our spaces, for most of our customers, our spaces are not used as they were historically. There are much fewer people in the spaces, so it's harder to know exactly where those people are spending their time. And then two, you can also plan to have your cleaning staff go in time periods that tend to be not as busy, so that you're not, preventing someone from using the restroom or preventing someone from going to the cafe during a really busy time. You're just being mindful of when those ebbs and flows of traffic are happening. And then lastly, another popular a way that customers are using analytics is that a lot of our customers are trying to figure out how to leg back into having people come back to their places of business or their offices. And it's not a hard science. Most of our customers have been doing is saying, okay, we're going to start with 10% in a more, population that has a harder time working from home. That's going to be who we allow to come back into the office. But it often isn't mandatory that those people come back to the office. It's just an option that the company starts offering up. And with analytics, you can start seeing, if I allowed 10%, 30%, 40% of my workforce to come back, how many people actually show up? How many people actually come day in, day out? What do those traffic patterns look like? So one, you can make sure that just as you're ramping those, those levels back up, that you're still able to maintain safe occupancy levels in your spaces. And two, you can also then optimize things like potentially staggered schedules, so everyone's not coming to the building at the exact same time every day, or maybe work on schedules like 2 days on, 2 days off, to make sure that you're getting the most of your space. People have access to the things they need to do their jobs, but that you're still allowing for safe social distancing and compliance with any of your other health and safety targets. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob, who's going to walk through all of this live.
Yes, thank you. Also, before I get started, I noticed a message in the chat. There's also a little Q&A button probably down at the bottom of your screens. You can submit questions at any time throughout this, and we do have a section at the end where we'll address some of those. So what you're looking at here is the sort of the plumbing of our density platform. This is our spaces view. Our platform is sort of divvied up into really 3 core functions that align with some of what Leanna spoke about before. We have our analytics and dashboards functionality. We have live functionality, safe display, and then we have alerts, which is sort of embedded inside of this spaces view. Spaces is a hierarchical overview of your space. In this case, we have our first floor. This is a simulated data set. So we have live data coming in here. You can see at any point in time, mostly just kind of a gut check, and also view sort of your day historically at any point in time, and a number of different reports that hopefully help give people a complete picture of their space. But you can see it's super easy to set up an alert at any time. So at present, I have one alert sort of created but not occupied. And it's really easy to create them. So in this case, I can create an SMS alert. I could also just set up an alert on my mobile phone. This is an occupancy-based alert. Over the next 2 weeks, we're actually releasing a host of other alerts based on different metrics. So like certain number of entrances or uses, so you can trigger work orders or cleaning of a certain space. But super easy to create at any point in time for any space in my portfolio. I also want to touch on analytics. So this is like our analytics homepage. We have some recommended or pre-made reports based on the composition of a portfolio. In this case, we've automatically generated a cafeteria summary. Oh, actually, this is the wrong one. I like this COVID one. So this is a example of say a educational environment in which they offer cafeterias to the students. That's what this particular data set's modeled off of. You can see this cafeteria is open in the morning, so you see an early spike for breakfast, another spike for lunch. But what's really important is that you can see when any kind of cafe exceeds a certain capacity. Before, this used to be about service, ensuring that you had appropriate staffing at any point in time. But now this is very much about safety. So as an operator, you can immediately triage when perhaps there are too many students or patrons or employees rushing into your cafeteria. And obviously the Tip Top Cafe, this is probably like a Taco Tuesday situation. Across our portfolio, Taco Tuesdays are pretty popular. So you actually tend to see a spike. We've had a couple of customers specifically call that out. So watch out for Taco Tuesdays. So in addition to our analytics reporting, we also offer these dashboards in which people can create digests where they're emailed periodically. So if you're regularly monitoring your space, I think I saw a question just around potential social distancing. So one way we're helping customers look at their status for social distancing is exposing our people per square foot summary. And basically our goal here is at a high level, as opposed to like monitoring every micro interaction, of which there are just so many, and triggering alerts or something crazy like that. we give people one metric that just suggests like, hey, you have enough space for people to actually operate in a safe way. This used to be for efficiency. Again, now super helpful for safety. So, you know, that's where you're seeing like, these are North American averages and people try to hit that. We're seeing that number increase quite a bit now under new safety guidelines. So these are dashboards, really cool. It's really easy just to create a digest. You can just send an email once, or you can create recurring digests that happen any day of the week at any time of the day to a list of users in the Density platform. And then lastly, we have our new safe display product. So you can create any number of displays. These can be put on a TV of any kind, as long as it's Wi-Fi enabled. We usually recommend using like a Fire Stick. Sorry about these. Are you seeing my notifications, Leanna, by chance?
No.
Shouldn't be. Cool, thank you. So we recommend using a Fire Stick. We also offer integrations with a couple different third-party providers, but you can create these displays in the Density system. Again, restrooms are quite popular, as Leanna mentioned. So you can create a display for a restroom. It's super funny. Like, we definitely did not think, you know, we'd be like the guardians of safe restrooms when we started this company, but it's such a popular use case, and you can see why. Like, these are close-quartered space, typically spaces that people take for granted, and then people are getting up from their desks or going into restrooms blindly. So a lot of our customers are looking to expose the status of that restroom externally before people go in and get themselves into a predicament. So you can create these displays. You can set a capacity, a target capacity for these displays. The configuration updates in real time. So as people actually enter into the space, you can see it change, and then it essentially displays a, hey, stop, don't come in here. There's someone in it. And then based on historical information, we can also expose a general wait time. So people know they're not going to be standing at the bathroom for 30 minutes, which is also pretty funny data that we have now. But in any case, you can also configure the display. So here we have a message that just says to the patron, hey, we're using Density to expose the occupancy of the space. You can also include a space list. So let's say we also wanted to expose the women's room on the first floor as an alternative. You could see that, you know, the women's room is occupied at the moment. And you can actually add up to 4 spaces at any time and expose the occupancy and the safety level of those spaces as well. You could save this, and again, it just spits out a URL, and you can open in any browser. Basically, it's just a full screen display of a particular space. Cool. So that's the demo. Leanna, I'll hand it back over to you. Yep. I think it's question time.
Okay, let's start running through these questions. So one that came in through chat is, how does a typical deployment look like, and what types of sensors are needed? How does the data actually get back to the dashboard? Yeah,
cool. So our deployments definitely vary. Right now, given the back to work plans that we're seeing a lot of floor level deployments, which means you set up a sensor at every entry point surrounding your floor. This is one aspect of our product that a lot of people really like. You can use fewer sensors as compared to other products to cover a lot more square footage. And again, we're super accurate, so you get a really clear picture as to what's going on that floor. And then they'll typically expose displays in lobbies or on the perimeter of the floor as well to ensure employees know whether or not it's safe to enter. But we also have deployments of singular sensors in conference rooms and bathrooms, again, in these smaller spaces that were right now a popular use case is exposing this information for cleaning purposes. But historically, it's been used to expose the availability of those assets to employees in real time. We have room booking integrations that allow for the potential for releasing rooms if they're not occupied. So all the traditional sort of space planning activities, Density supports as well.
Yeah, and to add on to what Rob said, so some key takeaways are the threshold-based sensor, you put it over each point of ingress or egress into your space so that we can understand the movement in and out of the space and infer the total people in the space at any given time. And then it connects back to the dashboard by sending data. Each sensor sends effectively the +1, -1 data to the cloud. And then that's how we display information in the dashboard. And it does that, it needs connectivity. So we're Wi-Fi enabled, or obviously you can also use a hardwire like Ethernet connection to connect the device.
Yep, absolutely. I should also add, like, that data, the time it takes for the density sensor to say this is a person who just entered or exited a space. We display that data in our dashboard in sub 1 second intervals depending on your internet connection. So it is truly, near real time.
Yeah. Next question, and Rob, I can take this. Does the product only work indoors? If yes, are there any types of buildings that don't work well? So that's correct. Our product only works indoors. We currently don't have any outdoor weatherproof certifications. And so it does need to be in an indoor climate controlled environment. And for buildings, it's really flexible in terms of the install. So we're installed, like Rob was mentioning earlier, in warehouses and cafeterias and historic buildings, on campuses, standard corporate office environments. So it's super flexible in where you can have it installed. It's also flexible in terms of the amount of space you can cover. If you put multiple sensors together, you can cover wide thresholds. So happy to talk more about your use case if you follow up with us, but it is very flexible, and we are installed in a myriad of indoor environments. Next question, Rob, how long is the event or occupancy history data kept?
At the moment, forever. We don't have any expiration on our data set. So, we launched around 2 years ago, I think, officially. So the oldest event in our systems, probably a little older than 2 years. We can remove stuff on special requests, but we haven't really had that need, especially because the data is totally anonymous. So people feel pretty comfortable with keeping this data around. There's not a high demand to remove it in any way.
Yeah. And next question, Rob, is there a way to show customers historically how busy a space is throughout the day so they can plan to come when it's less busy? So that's as opposed to display, which is real time, how busy is it right now, exposing the more historical information. Yeah,
totally. So we actually have a mobile application that our customers can use to expose to their patrons, or at least monitor internally. And it shows a 24-hour view, but also shows a predictive data set. So as of right now, like, how busy will it be? So at any point in time, you can use our mobile application to essentially say, now is a good time to go, or not a good time to go. We also have an additional interface that I didn't show that we call Live. We're actually working on integrating that into our display product, but it exposes busyness in real time. So you don't have maybe a historical chart, but it does say how many people are in a space, and then also how busy it's getting, or if it's getting quieter. So again, helps expose that information to patrons and help them make a decision. A lot of our corporate customers use that for their corporate cafes. They'll usually have a display on a floor, or they'll have a link that they give patrons, or a link that they give employees. And then anytime it's lunchtime, an employee can pull it up and decide whether to go or not go.
Yeah, and one other aspect is, depending on your particular use case, especially if you're more of a B2C environment where you don't want to give every customer, or you're not going to be able to convince every customer to download the density application, you don't necessarily want to administer users for that. We do have open APIs and really good API documentation. So other customers have, when they're faced with how do I display this data, have chosen to build their own modules in terms of their home pages, intranets, so they can customize that data that goes back to their customers or their other patrons, employees, students. So also happy to talk about that further if you're interested. But there's just a wide array of options to get this information into the hands of people who would actually use it.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Leanna. I think our API is kind of our pride and joy, and a mantra that we like to repeat is that density's data is even more valuable in the context of other data sets. So we really encourage our customers, if possible, to leverage our API, and we also have webhooks so that you can use our real-time data set as well.
Yeah. Next question, Rob. For a live display, is there a thick client with an auto launch feature, or is this web-based only?
It's web-based only. So whatever you're running, just basically needs to have a browser. That being said, we do have a tight integration that we've recently worked on with a product called Joan Display, and that's directly integrated into their product. So you can essentially include a density display URL, and it'll launch natively on their tablet.
Yeah, and for those of you who aren't familiar with Joan, it's pretty neat. It's a peel and stick tablet solution. So if you're thinking, I'd like to use Safe Display, but I don't necessarily already have those digital displays or signage, or it would be a lot to get, you know, the like outlets put in to put them up at scale. That is an option that some of our customers have been looking at to make it easy to deploy. Next question. If devices are connected by power over Ethernet, does that create challenges to deployments as they scale? And are there alternative methods to connect in the pipeline?
Sure, I can answer this. I'm sure you have thoughts too, Leanna, but yeah. I'd actually say it's kind of the opposite. So like we do have like our internet, our device supports Wi-Fi as well, and we ship these wall injectors. So you can use it like you would any other sort of generic consumer IoT device where while the cable is an Ethernet cable, it can be wall powered and you can leverage a wireless network to connect the internet. What we'd say is history tells us that makes it more difficult to scale because you end up with reliability issues with Wi-Fi. People unplug things out of the wall. So as company scales, we very much encourage them to centralize the power and connection into, you know, a closet with a switch, also so they can have easier access to those devices or control over those devices as well. So that's one reason why we really like PoEs, because you can have that centralized management, and it's kind of a set it and forget it type of approach, which with our sensor, you know, we think that's the best way to go. Any other thoughts, Leanna?
Oh yeah, that's one nice thing about consistent power connectivity is you're never going to have to worry about changing batteries at scale or anything like that. You plug it in, as long as it has a consistent power source, you're good to go. Next question. Oh, actually, there's some other questions. One is for Wi-Fi, is there a battery option? Otherwise, how long can this get powered if using a battery pack? So right now, there is not a battery option for Wi-Fi. You'd use, if you are installing via Wi-Fi, you can always plug it back to a switch in your like IDF closet or something like that, or you can use an injector to effectively just plug it directly into an outlet, which is also something many of our customers do. But today there's not a battery option. And if you find a battery that you love and works, please tell us. But to date, we've encouraged hardwire or like a consistent plugged in power source for the device.
Yeah, and the nature of our product, like there is somewhat of a significant power draw typically on startup because it is an infrared product. So there's a little bit more power than say a traditional camera that's required. So that's one additional limitation.
And someone else pointed out that we should mention, or it would be good to mention about density compared to other solutions. Density, because of the way it works, Rob just mentioned it's an infrared solution. It's basically shooting down infrared light, just understanding how far that light is from the sensor and putting those data points together to understand, does this shape and depth look like a human, or does it look like a cart, or does it look like something else that I should ignore? And the really nice thing about that is that there's no possible PII that we capture at any point. Even at that original source of capturing the data. We can't tell ethnicity, gender, age, anything like that, anything about who the person is. And that is something that differentiates density compared to other solutions that might use a camera at that source, that even though they obfuscate the data when it goes back up to the cloud, you still at the end of the day have that camera over your spaces that could potentially be compromised.
Yeah, and I'd say in addition to that, we are pretty crazy about accuracy. We're very transparent about it, so you'll see a lot of other people promise certain levels of accuracy. We don't necessarily make promises, but we make that very open, and it's a conversation we like to have, and we are consistently exceptionally accurate, and we're entrance based, and you're going to have a hard time finding products that are just that accurate and that immediate in their results. So as soon as something happens, Density is aware of it and can send it to you in less than a second. So all this put together, we feel like obviously offers a super unique product. But then there's our interfaces, I think, are also comparably unparalleled. I mean, there aren't a lot of other analytics platforms as robust as ours that are tailored towards this data set. And that's obviously a huge advantage for us and something that we take a lot of pride in.
Yeah, and one other question that came in over chat that, Rob, I don't know if we answered specifically, is how accurate is the sensor? Is it accurate to inches, feet, yards? And because it goes over a threshold, the way we think about accuracy is, one, we have specific guidelines of how you install it over a threshold. So if you go to setup.density.io or go to our density.io/docs page on our, both go to the same place on our website, you can see more of those specifics about what our recommended install height, width, parameters are. And within those, as long as you're installing within those parameters in your space, we are highly accurate. And that's, like Rob mentioned, that's something that we actually go through an accuracy review after everyone installs and make sure that we calibrate the devices to be as accurate as possible for the space. So it's not a matter of like inches or feet out from the sensor, it's more that you're installing within that specific set of guidelines. Okay. I think that's all the questions that I see. Rob, any last comments you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. You know, this is great. Always a pleasure, Leanna. Hope everyone stays safe, and please reach out to us directly if you have any additional questions, or if you're interested in having a conversation about using us to help you get back to some semblance of normalcy. So
yeah, absolutely. It's been a privilege helping our customers reopen their places of business and help keep their, patrons, employees, students safe. So like Rob mentioned, please reach out to us if you have specific questions on how we can help your business do that.
Totally. And just one last note, like, we're in the same situation too. So we'd love to just we'd love to learn what you're doing. We have our own factory that we're ensuring we're operating properly. So lots of uncertainty, but thanks again, guys. Talk to you later.
Take care.